Hey guys, this is Gamer Guy. Welcome to another Pokemon Trading Card Game History video. This time we're talking about Ancient Origins, and I gotta admit I don't like this set very much. It's not that there's nothing interesting in here, but especially coming off of a slaughterhouse of a rotation, this ain't it. There's not a lot of like high-powered stuff in here per se, and it just what is here ends up making things worse, I think. Roaring Sky certainly was the turning point and the ruiner, but this does not help. So yeah, it's a much smaller set. I think there's less than 115 cards in here, so that's at least something. But we still got a lot to talk about because whilst I might not like it, there are certainly plenty of interesting cards in here. There's some promo stuff as well. I think the Absol was actually available last time, so I should have talked about it then. But honestly, no Spirit Link, no, play. We've seen this before with the Megas from promo stuff. It's a shame too, because, yeah, it's not the sturdiest of Pokemon out there, but Disaster Wing's actually kind of nice. For 2 Dark Energy, Mega Absol does 80. You then discard the top card of the opponent's deck, and if it's a trainer card, you do 80 more. You can see what the opponent's top deck is if you play Trick Shovel, so that can let you either look at it and then put it back on top of the deck, or discard it depending on whether or not it's actually a trainer. So you can do a little bit of extra milling and stuff, that's neat, but again, no Spirit Link, so good luck trying to play this, to be honest. We have a Rayquaza here as well, which, fine. 120 HP, not particularly good. Free energy to retreat, not good until next set when we can heavy ball it. Dragon Pulse is also very expensive for discarding the top 3 of your own deck too. Realistically, the only reason you could conceive of playing this is because of Ozone Wall. Whilst it's on the bench, it prevents any damage done to it from attacks. So if you were hellbent on playing that Zapdos that we saw in the previous set that did damage to one of your benched Pokemon, and didn't apply weakness or resistance, you could use this to prevent that damage, but realistically, never gonna do that. I think there was another basic Ray EX that we could have played last set as well, which also doesn't really do much, just like the Charizard that was in this sort of bit. For 2 Colorless Energy, Mega Ascension lets you search your deck for Mega Ray and put it into hand, but it doesn't let you evolve into it, which is stupid. So yeah, that's kind of pointless. And then Arrow Scream for 4 colorless does 130. If you flip tails, it discards 2 energy on this Pokemon. Technically the highest damage output I think you're going to get from a basic Ray, at least for colorless Mega Ray decks, but nah, it's nowhere near as good as the other one. It's also 170 HP, so the same HP as the colorless one from the set itself, so it's just not good. The one promo that might actually be playable here is Tyrantrum. This 180 HP, free energy retreat, so again, next set heavy ball could be useful. It is pretty solid. It prevents any effects of the opponent's on the opponent's active Pokemon from blocking damage from this thing. So if Safeguard and stuff was still in the format, which it will be in the future with Carbink, this would prevent that from happening. And Dragon Impact is a pretty impressive attack. Fighting 2 metal and a colorless does 190, and you discard free energy from this Pokemon. It is 10 short of Black Kyurem, but it does have acceleration in the form of Bronzong, and you can lower retreat cost with Hydreigon. So there's a deck there for sure. It was played a bit with Giratina. I know it did see a top at some point. I forget exactly which event it was, but it is listed as a top 8 deck, I think, or top 8 finish deck in the Fate Sky format, so that's kind of cool. Uses one of the cards from this set that we'll be talking about as well. So yeah, trainer cards, since they're probably the more powerful part of this set, at least on the whole. We did just lose N for quite a while, so Ace Trainer is our first attempt at replicating that. You can only play this if you're behind on prizes though, but you shuffle draw 6, the opponent shuffle draws 3. That's a pretty devastating amount to go down to. It's not an end to 1 for sure, but it also means you don't have to be a 1 prize left on the opponent's side in order to trigger this, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, if your deck is giving up single prizes and stuff because you're trying to play that kind of deck, maybe Raichu or something, Not a bad inclusion. Ampharos gets a Mega in this set. We'll talk about that very briefly later. It's not very good, unfortunately. Eco Arm is pretty solid. Shuffle 3 Pokemon tools and discard pile into the deck. Unfortunately, we did just lose the Elisa supporter, which would have been very solid with this, to be honest, to go search those tools right back out. But we very, very rarely get tool recovery in the Pokemon TCG, and this is a solid one. So if you are playing a tool heavy deck, you can consider one of this for sure. Energy Recycler makes its debut here. I love this card, to be honest. Shuffle 5 basic energy from your discard pile back into the deck. This is in Modern as well, except it's up to 5 now, but this is still fantastic. Being able to get a ton of energy back into the deck, it's like Sacred Ash, but just for energy. So yeah, really happy to see this sort of thing around. A lot of decks can take advantage of that. Faded Town is pretty interesting, and anytime between turns, this stadium puts 2 damage cans on every Mega Evolution Pokemon in play, so that's not bad. Mega Evolutions have become some of the strongest cards in the format overall, and this has a bit of a punish to them, which is pretty good. Forest of Giant Plants is a mistake. One of many mistakes this set inflicts upon us, but this one is probably the most egregious overall. Each player's grass Pokemon can evolve during his or her first turn or the turn he or she plays those Pokemon. It's broken time-space, but only for grass types, which is what gives it the unflattering, we shall say, nickname of Broken Vine Space, because of course, there's even vines on the card, as I got it pointed out to me. Yeah, this card is dumb, and it did get banned and expanded because it is very dumb there. And yeah, thankfully we don't have a Phantom that's grass type until after this the Trevenant rotates, but we do have an equally devastating grass type in this set, which is really stupid. Speaking of mistakes, and also cards that got banned and expanded, Hex Maniac is insane in a format that has VS Seeker. Until the end of your opponent's next turn, this supporter card basically Garbodors the entire field. Each player's Pokemon in play, in hand, and in discard pile do not have abilities. Yeah, that's not very nice. So yeah, clearly if we still had like safeguard and stuff, this would be able to get around that sort of ability, which is something to consider, but it also just completely stops the opponent from getting back into the game and stuff as well. And with VS Seeker you can chain one copy of this for like 4 turns in a row and just ruin the opponent. It's devastating. It does have a pretty cool alt art from the premium collection thing though, so we'll be seeing it, unfortunately. Very strong card. Level Ball gets a reprint here, which is amazing. I did complain about this in the last rotation not existing, and very glad to see it back here. If we do want to play like evolution decks and stuff, this is a fantastic card to have around to get the basics, so super keen on this. Lucky Helmet is an interesting new card. If the Pokemon it's attached to is active and takes damage from an opponent's attack, you draw 2 cards. That draw is not optional, so you do have to watch your deck size, but it's pretty fun, just being able to draw extra cards. It's kind of like Gift Energy, and I think Lucky Energy also does a similar thing. It's like draw a card when you take damage or something, same sort of idea. Gift Energy is when you get KO'd, but that does see play nowadays, so decent enough tool if you can afford to use it. Yeah, I'd say so. Lysander gets a reprint here, so it's not falling to the next rotation, so that's kind of important. Paint Roller is a new item card here. Discards Stadium in play and then draws a card. Not amazing, to be honest with you. It's like really bad MST, I guess. But I guess if you are very specifically worried about certain Stadium cards, or if you want a Stadium, like maybe from next set or something, you would want the Stadium that has like a minor upside for you, but you need to get rid of it before the end of the turn, you could use it. It's so sketch though, and it's so specific for what it does, it's not going to see play. Sceptile and Tyranitar are other Mega Evolutions in here. We will talk about them briefly because we don't have a lot else to go into for the Trainer Energy stuff. Just the specials. Dark and Lightning get special energies here. The Darkness Energy only provides stuff when it's on the Dark Pokemon, just as per usual, but whenever that Dark Pokemon gets damaged whilst active by an EX, put 2 damage counters on the attack of the EX. yeah, super specific for the damage counter stuff here. It is quite powerful, but it's so difficult to justify when Dart decks are already wanting to play a bunch of DCE, Yveltal can't accelerate this from the discard pile, and just too many other issues with it really. The fact that it can only hit EXs as well, I find it personally pretty difficult to play, but I guess I could see it if you really wanted to. And then Flash Energy is our lightning one. This blocks weakness on the lightning Pokemon it's attached to, which is awesome, because lightning Pokemon have had that issue of only ever really being weak to fighting, and this prevents that. So you could take your Mega Manectric into a fighting deck now, and maybe not instantly get eviscerated. It is true in this format that we don't have lightning resistance anymore, so that's cool. And yeah, decent enough card to go against that. Gonna be pretty solid next set with the Raikou that we get in Breakthrough, so keep an eye out on this one. On to the actual set itself, and we'll just go in order because again, Mega Evolutions and whatnot, and Buff, do we have to talk about this? I guess we do. Vileplume makes a return, and it has the same ability that it did in Generation 4. Why? Each player can't play item cards from their hand. That's pretty much all you need to know. Solar Beam is a trash attack. It's got 3 energy as its retreat cost, so technically would be Heavy Ball searchable next set, but yeah, it's dumb. The reason it's so dumb because we've already been in a format that has had Broken Time Space plus Vileplume before, and it wasn't as easy to search out as it is now. I don't know why they thought it was a good idea reprinting this, and unfortunately we are going to see it because I am definitely bringing the deck this time round, I'm afraid. So yeah, not fun. One of the many reasons I don't like this set. There are some other cool cards in this set though, like Ariados. Grass in general gets a really big buff in this set, which is good because they've needed it forever. Screw you, Seismitoad. Ariados lets you poison both actives except for grass Pokemon once per turn, so that means you can use it in grass decks to avoid the poison aspect and just get a little bit extra chip damage. We don't have Hypnotoxic Laser anymore, so that suddenly becomes a bit more viable. And there's also synergy with Machamp in this set that we'll talk about later too. Impound is a reasonable attack if you somehow get 2 energy on this thing, although it does only have 70 HP, so keep that in mind. 30 damage for Grass Colorless, and the opponent can't retreat next turn, so it works with its own Poisonous Nest, which is kinda cool, I suppose. So, yeah, decent enough effect there too. Sceptile is worth talking about in general. I did mention the promo Sceptile in the previous set, which you will use if you aren't playing Ariados, because it's generally got the better attacks for a non-status condition thing, but this Sceptile is really good in general too. It's a 1 energy retreat, 170 HP dude, so solid stats for the basic one here. Sleep Poison for a grass energy only does 10, but if you flip heads it sleep and poisons the opponent, as the name would suggest. So yeah, Hypnotoxic Laser, but it only does the thing if you flip heads, right? It doesn't poison and then put to sleep, so probably for the best. Unseen Claw for a Grass and the Colors does 60, which is already okay, although maybe not for a second attack, but still, if the opponents are affected by a special condition, it does 70 more. So usually, of course, it's going to go with the Ariados right next to it here. You poison them, you do 130 with this thing, and then you take the 10 from Poison 2, 140, pretty reasonable. You could Muscle Band it to 160 if you want to. It's not one-shotting anything, but for a 2 energy EX attack here, that's not bad at all. It does kill Shamans and stuff, so there is that. It has a Mega Evolution, of course, the Mega Sceptile. This is the last set that has ancient traits in it, and we don't have like a Pokemon to tie them to anymore, so we just have Theta, because why not? Mega Sceptile is a 220 HP, 2 energy retreat Pokemon this time, and its Theta Stop prevents effects of the opponent's abilities affecting this Pokemon. So you can't back ping this, which is actually huge for the format and huge for the Sceptile in general too, because it would be quite vulnerable to that sort of thing. Jagged Saber for 1 Grass and a Colorless does 100 damage, and you may attach up to 2 Grass energy cards on your hand to your bench in any way that you like. It could stop there, and it would already be relatively solid. Slightly weaker than Mega Manectric, but has the potential to accelerate energy from hand instead. But it goes further, because if you attach any energy to a Pokemon in this way, heal all damage from that Pokemon. Wowzers! So this can form a self-sufficient loop, which Sai is going to attempt to show today, where if you Jagged Saber and you can attach energy, say just one to your bench Mega Sceptile, when this one takes damage, and 220 is hard to KO in one hit, so it's usually going to survive that damage. You pay the 2 to retreat to the bench, you recover the energy with like energy retrieval or something, and you Jagged Saber to the Sceptile you retreated to the bench. This accelerates the energy back to it so it can attack next turn, but it also fully heals it so it removes the opponent's turn, basically. Very, very strong card. Vespiquen is pretty solid, 90 HP, is lovable, searchable, and it basically replaces the Flareon that just rotated, because for 2 colorless energy, Be Revenge does 20 plus 10 for every Pokemon in your discard pile. Yeah, we just lost Flareon that does this, and it's a shame because that would be really cool to combine the two of them. Flarequen, I guess. I don't know what you want to call it. Firebees. It was a pretty solid thing for Expanded for quite a while. Intelligence Gathering is also good. For 1 colorless energy, you do 10, and then draw until you have 6 cards in hand. Because we can evolve into this immediately using Forest of Giant Plants, and trust me, you want to as much as you can, because Combee's only got 40 HP, so barf on that one. But because you can do that, you can generally use this early on in the game before you've got a bunch of Pokemon in the discard, and helps you set up. So yeah, just a really solid card all around. It's very strong for Night March, it's very strong for its own thing. It gets strong later on with Vileplume, but right now it's missing Revitalizer, which I think is a bit too important for that archetype, but you could probably still play it and it'd still be fine. And it has its own archetype with the Eevees we'll go into here as well in a bit. I only want to mention the other Vespiquen because Fated Double is a trait that we'll see as the alternative one for this set. It allows you to equip 2 tools onto the Pokemon that it's on, which is good. Just solid in general. It's got a cool idea, being able to do, say, double Muscle Band and increase the damage that your B-Drain is doing. But 90 HP does not work with tanking strategies. Oh, I didn't mention as well, the Vespiquen here has got 0 retreat, so very strong for even just pivoting as well. Super good card. The last grass type is still worth noting as well. Virizion, 110 HP, 1 retreat, same as the black and white like Noble Victories one, but its attacks are much different. For 1 grass, you put 2 Pokemon from your discard pile back into your hand with Bailout. Sometimes that's going to be good, going back to the hand specifically is quite good. And then for 2 grass energy you do 40 damage, but if your opponent has, is ahead on prizes, you do 80 more, so 120 for 2, which is good conversion numbers. So yeah, I like it. Flareon is pretty interesting. All of the EVs basically have the same template here. They're all 90 HP. They all have an attack which is 1 colored energy and double colorless to do anywhere between 60 and 80 damage. The Flareon, you have to flip a coin to get the extra here. Vaporeon does a flat 70 and Jolteon does 80, but it forces a discard. They've got varying retreat costs as well, based on the speed of the Pokemon, I guess. Although Flareon and Vaporeon share the same speed, so why Vaporeon has to retreat for more, I don't know. But they all have the X effect ability. Flare effect, Aqua effect, Electric effect. Why is it not Thunder effect? That would make sense. Whatever. Each of your stage 1 Pokemon in play is now a Elemental type, in addition to its existing types. Obviously Fire for Flareon, Lightning for Jolteon, Water for Vaporeon. This does not work on Mega Evolutions because they are not stage 1s. This is for stuff like Vespiquen over here, or it would have been like Zoroark, right? Foul Play Zoroark would have been a thing too, if it was still in format. Yeah, very cool very, very cool cards here, because these are pretty, well, okay, water maybe not so, but fire and lightning are pretty good weaknesses to hit. Like, we've just seen all of the new grass type stuff here, so fire obviously is good against that. Metal's also still reasonable because Bronzong, so yeah, good stuff there. And then lightning's really good against the rays, the crowbats, and all sorts of funky stuff that way. So yeah, good types to hit. And being able to add that means that you could still hit grass weakness with a Vespiquen as well. You'll typically see that's the deck that gets played as Vespiquen with EVs, so you discard the excess ones to fuel B Revenge and just use the ones that you need to for power-ups. Good stuff. Both Entei's are pretty solid here as well. The lesser used one has 120 HP, both of them are 2 energy retreat. But this one, its Burning Roar attack is basically never used. Discard the top 4 of your deck, and if any are fire energy, attach them to your Pokemon however you want. Kind of like Celestial Roar from Rayquaza EX back in Dragons Exalted, but at least it accelerates anywhere you want, so I guess that's a thing. And then Combat Blaze for 2 fire energy does 20, plus 20 more for every opposing bench Pokemon. So very strong against Ray, that you could use it in that sort of matchup where they've got like 7 or 8 bench Pokemon, but even just in a typical game, that's like 120 if the opponent maxes out the bench. It's Blacksmith fuelable, that's just without attachments, so that's pretty solid. And yeah, it's alright. Decent enough card. A little bit outshadowed by this Entei, however. 130 HP Ancient Trait one has got the Fated Double trait that lets add 2 tools attached to it, and its attacks are pretty respectable. For a fire and a colorless, you do 30 and prevent 30 damage next turn, so 30 less from everything, pretty good. And then Heat Tackle for 2 fire and 2 colorless does 130, but if you flip tails it does 30 to itself as well, which does hurt its tanking a reasonable bit, but 130 is good numbers, and this is only going to get better as we get a couple of additional tools to the format. But even just think about it at the moment, we have Muscle Band and we have Hard Charm. You could do 170 if you put 2 Muscle Bands on, or you could do 130 but take 40 less, and so that'd be like 70 less if you do Flame Screen stuff. Very good, very, very good indeed. And it's Blacksmith fuelable, just like the Charizard is, so yeah, New Age Fire, pretty solid. None of the other fire stuff is any good, although artwork appreciation for the Volcarona, I think this thing is pretty sweet. So we'll move on to the Gyarados, not this one, this one. Fated Double, once again on this thing, 130 HP, free energy retreat, could be decent next set, and the attack we care about is Full Retaliation. For a double colorless, this does 30, plus 30 more for every damage counter that's on the bench Magikarp. Specifically on your side of the field, if you play a mirror it's not like for every one of them. This card has got a lot of good stuff going for it. It attacks for a DCE, it has a way of fueling its own thing via Team Magma's secret base, so when you bench your Magikarp whilst that stadium is in play, it takes 20 damage, so you get to fuel this immediately, and on a full hit it is 210 damage this thing does. Plus, if you want to, if you have space in your deck, you can play tool cards with this too because it has Fated Double, so you can have extra tools attached as well. Very cool. Thrash is not very good, so we're not charging it up with that, but for a single DCE, yeah, this is formidable. It's also water type, so you could play Archie's Ace in the Hole with it as well, and that would let you have 4 Magikarp in play, which is terrifying amounts of damage. So yeah, solid card. Regice is pretty good, although not until a little bit later, because we did lose Blastoise, so we don't have Archie-Stoise available to us anymore. 120 HP, free energy retreat, metal weakness, so decent for a water type instead of grass right now. And Resistance Blizzard is what we truly care about, but Ice Beam is there too if you do happen to need to try and flip for paralysis. Resistance Blizzard is a grass, not even a grass, it's Reg Ice. Water, double colorless to do 70, and during an opponent's next turn, prevent all effects of attacks including damage done to this by EXs. Yeah, it's like the Hippowdon from a couple of sets back, but on a basic. And actually does more damage too, which is very funny. So yeah, decent card. We just need the water support to come back in and we'll be fine with this one. But even just now, if you could get the energy set up on this thing, that's pretty good. Fairy Bots might want to use it, because they play Rainbow Energies anyway, so yeah. There's a Kyurem EX in here that's got Glaciate, it's kind of fun, and Ice Caliber is a fun name for an attack, but it really isn't solid. Ha, unfortunately. Yeah, Glaciate on an EX just isn't that amazing. Maybe if we had Archie we could still use it, but we don't, so yeah, no Blastoise even to accelerate to it. I don't know how you're powering it up, so yeah, too bad. Ampharos unfortunately isn't very good, 170 HP, 2 retreat, yeah whatever. Its Thunder Rod attack is terrible because you only look at the top 4 of your deck, and any lightning that you find there you attach to this Pokemon, so your active is going to take a hit from the opponent next turn, and you really don't want that for energy acceleration. And Sparking Tail is just horrendous for the attack cost. 2 lightning, 2 colors for 100? Even if it is like a swift based attack? Yeah, no. We don't have safeguards anymore, so we don't need to hit through the stuff with that, so terrible. Mega Ampharos doesn't get any better. It keeps the 2 lightning, 2 colors attack cost here. It only goes up to 220 HP, so it's not even on the bulky side like Ampharos probably should be. And it really needs that because it self-damages too. Exavolt does 120, and if you want to do like a good amount of damage, you've got to do 30 to yourself as well. You can do 170 total and paralyze the opponent, but then you do 30 to yourself. The problem is that if you're doing that, you are intending on killing the opponent, because 120 twice is enough to KO everything anyway, right? So if you're doing the paralysis thing here, it's because you want to kill. So the paralysis is useless. So it's 170 but do 30 to yourself, which is not a good conversion, right? Unknown comes back in here as well. This is a reprint of Unknown R from Generation 4. If it's on the bench, you can discard it and draw a card. Very, very good for Vespiquen decks. Pretty much all there is to it. Not many other decks that play it, although maybe you could play it in Mega Ray, but I'd rather not. That's just me. Golug is very close to being good. It's a Psychic type with Fade to Stop, so it prevents abilities from being affecting this thing. It's got Double type, so it is Psychic and Fighting type, which are 2 pretty good types to be. And because it is a Psychic type, naturally, it does not get affected by Wobbuffet, so you can still hit that thing for weakness, which is solid. The problem is its attack is not quite good enough. Superpower for 4 colorless does only 80 damage. If you do 40 more, you do 20 to yourself as well, which unfortunately Hard Charm does not stop, otherwise this might actually be reasonable. Hooper EX is insane for EX focused decks like Mega Ray. This 170 HP 2 retreat guy, when you bench it from your hand, you search your deck for up to 3 Pokemon EX, reveal them and put them into the hand. It does not include itself, so you do not get to loop like you would with Miraidon nowadays, but yeah, very, very solid ability here, and it just makes Mega Ray that much faster. If you can play Hyperspace Fury, it's not a terrible attack, I just don't know how you powered it right now. For 3 Psychic Energy, you discard 2 energy on this Pokemon and snipe 100 on one of the opponent's Pokemon. It can be on the actives, so you can hit for weakness there and take like KOs if you have to. But yeah, decent attack, just like how are you getting it up? Also got a really good full art though. Where is this bad boy? It's down here. Yeah, I really, really like the background on this full art, so absolutely super thrilled with that. Machamp is a very fun deck that we are not quite in the realm of using yet because we don't have Max Elixir, but it becomes a pretty strong deck at that point. 180 HP, 3 energy retreat, so it'll be heavy ball searchable later on too, and it's got 2 pretty solid attacks. Steaming Mad for fighting colorless does 20 for every damage counter that's on this Pokemon. You then confuse yourself, so a little bit annoying, but it's supposed to work with Crazy Hammer. Not the best way of doing it, but it can. 2 fighting and a colorless to do 80, but if it's affected by a special condition, it does 80 more, and then removes all the special conditions on this Pokemon. So of course, like I mentioned earlier, you use this with Ariados. Since it is not a grass type itself, the Machamp does get poisoned, and then you heal that poison, do 160 to the opponent, who is assuming, I'm presuming they would be also poisoned, and you then do 170, which is actually really good. So yeah, very solid deck later on. Artwork appreciation for Quagsire, he's not very good, but he's having his best life out there. Definitely very good. Tyranitar is the other main Mega in this set. The regular T-Tar is basically worthless, so we'll just skip, and also the artwork is terrible, so we'll just skip straight to the Mega here. 240 HP is immense, but it has the double-edged trait, Theta Double, giving it 2 tools attached to it. This is an excellent trait on a single prizer, but is a very sketchy trait to have on a Mega here, because it means that you have an extra tool slot freed up for the opponent to play Headringer on you, and that would be very sad. Don't allow that. Destroyer King is a bit of a build around, and if you could somehow fuel it, it would be pretty solid. For 2 dark and 2 colorless, it does 110 plus 60 for every damage counter that's on the opponent's active Pokemon. It takes exactly 2 damage counters to effectively hit for 250 damage, which is enough to KO everything in the game, even Wailord. So, a single Golbat ping, that's all it needs. Problem is getting 4 energy on this thing. If we had Dark Patch, maybe. Mega Turbo is in format, but it is still horrifically slow. And there is also the fact that you could just get head ringed twice if you have to go, if it gets ringed early. You need to have extra tools in order to not lose your Mega to ringer, and that's just terrible. So yeah, unfortunately not very good, but it's a pet deck for a fair few people, so we'll talk about it anyway. Speaking of like funny meme stuff that's not actually good, both Metagrosses are pretty funny in their own right. The non-ancient trait one has got Magnetic Warp, which is the interesting bit about it here. That is effectively Escape Rope. You switch your active with one of your bench, and then the opponent switches theirs afterwards. It's the opposite way round from Escape Rope, so it is a little bit weaker, but it's on a once per turn ability, and it works with Bronzong, so that's pretty solid. Which is nice for it because Iron Cannon actually works with Bronzong too. You discard all the medals on this if you choose to, and for 2 metal, 2 colorless, you effectively do 160 at that point. 80 plus 80. That's fine. Reasonable numbers. Hits 180 with a muscle band, so that's decent. But how are you getting like 2 Bronzong plus 2 Metagross plus the pans and everything going? I don't know. So it's probably easier to play the other Metagross, who has 2 traits that are worth noting. Theta Double lets it have 2 tools attached to it, and Machine Gun Stomp for a double colorless energy is 20 plus 10 for each card in your hand. We almost don't have hand disruption right now. We have Ace Trainer technically, and then we have Red Card as an item that can disrupt the hand stuff, but those are not likely to get played. So if you can manage to amass a really big hand, this would be the set to use this. But it's so much work and just isn't worth it. Lucky Helmet's pretty funny for it though. So there is that, but yeah, just not amazing under any circumstance. Basically gonna skip the Registeel because yeah, it can discard energy, but it's not that impressive. It's only against the X's, doesn't do enough damage, blah 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 blah. Let's move on to the other card I'm gonna be playing today in Giratina EX. 170 HP, 3 energy retreat, so big boy here over here. But it's basically just Disruption incarnate. Its Renegade Pulse prevents all effects of attacks, including damage done to it by Mega Evolutions, so that shuts off a lot of decks by itself, or at least makes them play differently. And then Chaos Wheel for 1 Grass, 1 Psychic, and a double colorless, does 100. That's it. But it also prevents the opponent playing tools, special energy, or stadium cards during their next turn. The tool card bit is generally not super relevant because you're playing this with Vileplume most of the time, although if you're not playing a Vileplume deck, that can still be very disruptive. But the special energy especially is devastating for, including itself, most other decks in the format are going to have a really hard time against this thing. Yeah, you play this with Double Dragon, Double Colorless, those are the energies that you can use with it, really. And yeah, it's got a variety of times you can use it. I'm going to be using it with the Vileplume because nothing else really interests me in this set, I'll be honest with you, so that's where we're going with it. But it gets used later on with Darkrai, because Double Dragon energy is 2 Dark energy, and that works with the damage buffing of Dark Pulse. And you can use it with the Tyrantrum we talked about actually in the Metal deck, because Colorless can be accelerated using Metal energy. So Double Dragon plus a couple of Bronzongs, you can Chaos Wheel out of nowhere. yeah, stupidly annoying, to be honest. So definitely keep an eye out for it. Then the last card that's truly worth talking about is the Lugia. This is basically Mewtwo 3.0 at this point. Error Ball for DCE does 20 for every energy that's on both actives. Exactly the same attack as what Mewtwo had, but this time it can't hit for weakness because it's on the colorless Pokemon. 170 HP, 2 retreat, same sort of traits as what the Mewtwo had, but its second attack is completely different. Deep Hurricane for 4 colorless energy only does 80 damage, but if there's a stadium in play, it'll do 150 and then discard that stadium. There usually will be a stadium in play because this is Gen 6 and there's so many good ones to play. So yeah, 150 for 4 in any deck. That's not bad. You could use this with Manectric because it resists fighting, that's the most obvious one I could see, but there are loads of decks that you could play this in, to be honest, if you just want to. If you just need an extra attacker and you're playing DCE anyway, like you just need something that's generic, this is a pretty solid option. The only other things to talk about are the Paragons, just because this Paragon is mean. For 1 colorless energy, Cyber Crush discards all special energy on each of the opponent's Pokemon. But it is on the stage 2 and it doesn't have a lot else going for it, so barf, but still, very nasty attack. And then Digital Reboot is very funny, because for 1 colorless energy you devolve as many of your bench Pokemon as many times as you like, and put each evolution card removed into the hand. So you could actually go from stage 2 to basic on this if you really wanted to. I don't know why you would, but you could. And yeah, it's useful if you have evolving powers. I guess if you use it with bats, that could be funny, but then you're playing 2 stage 2s, and this thing doesn't do damage by itself, so I don't know what you're doing with that. But it's funny, so we'll talk about it anyway. That's this set in a nutshell, pretty much. Like, it's fine. Not the most powerful set out there, although it does have a couple of problem cards to speak on, right down here, and up here, so overall, I wouldn't exactly call it a fun set. There's a couple of decent includes in here, but more cards than not are bad, I think, for the format. So, yeah, XY started out so well, and then they just like stopped caring halfway through, and things go off the rails for a very long time, and this kind of shows why. So, hopefully there's at least some enjoyment to be had out of the games, but I'm not hold my breath for it. But thank you very much for watching, hopefully you found this interesting, and until next time, take care.